Fuji 35mm 1.4 meh. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name's Keith. In today's video I'm going to consider why I struggle to love the Fujifilm F 1.4 35mm lens. It's absolutely beautifully engineered. The glass is fantastic. For many people, it's the absolute go-to lens, but I've never really got on with it. And I don't really know why, and so I've tried to spend a bit of time thinking about why that is. Whether it's the lens itself, and I doubt it, whether it's me, and that's possible, user error, or whether it's just a poor fit for what I love photographing. And don't get me wrong, I do use this lens quite a lot. So I've been a Fujifilm user for a number of years now. My main camera at the moment is the X-T3, which I'm filming this on, and I absolutely love that camera. And although for landscape photography I tend to use zoom lenses, for everything else, street photography, theatre photography, portraiture, close-ups, product photography, I use primes. And I've got these 4 primes: 18mm, 27mm, 35mm, 56mm. All of them varying widest aperture from 1.4 up to 2.8. I would argue that the 35mm probably is closest to being the sharpest. I think absolutely the sharpest lens that I have is the Viltrox 56mm, but the 35mm is pretty damn close. So I can't think that it's to do with sharpness. It's very easy to use to get a good shallow depth of field, which is great in portrait work, and it's got nice bokeh. It's beautifully engineered. I know that Fujifilm have just recently brought out a similar lens but with all plastic casing, and it's quite a bit cheaper, but the glass is the same. Here the glass is great, and the actual engineering of the lens is beautiful. It's robust, it's solid, it feels great in the hand. So I don't think it's anything to do with the lens itself. Maybe it's to do with what I like shooting. In terms of shots taken over the last couple of years, the 35mm has been the lens I've used the most, then the 56, then the 18, and then the 27. All 4 of them have a hit rate of around 30%, just a little bit less. I use the 35mm principally for portraiture, and consequently that explains the number of pictures that I've taken with this compared to, say, the 18mm, which I generally use for street photography or outside photography. So what have I used this lens for? I've used it for gig photography. I've used it for principally portrait work. I've used it for studio rehearsals when I'm working with a theatre school. I've used it for group photography if it's a large group outside, daytime. It's great sharp lens for taking large groups of people, but you've really got to stop down to somewhere around f4. I've used it a lot for theatre photography, and I use it for travel photography. So why don't I get on with it very well? I love that you've got this beautiful shallow depth of field, which you can use very easily. I think largely for street and outside photography, I tend to prefer a slightly wider focal length, and really I've absolutely love that 27mm that I have, that little pancake lens. It really is a great focal length for me for outside. I also really love the 56mm for street photography. So I'm either shooting slightly wider or slightly longer, but that 35mm, I just don't really warm to it as much as that slightly wider or that slightly longer focal length. And so in the last couple of weeks I've been on 2 trips. I went to Vienna to shoot a band called Leap, up-and-coming band. It was a sold-out show, 500 people. So I shot exclusively with my 35mm. And the second trip, I went down to London. I went into the National Portrait Gallery, and I went round Covent Garden to do some street photography and some urban landscape photography. So what I'm going to show you are the pictures that I've taken. I've sort of forced myself to use this camera, and I think I've got some reasonably good pictures, particularly, and I was expecting this for the band photographs, but I was pleasantly surprised using this in the portrait gallery, but also in sort of London, sort of running up to Christmas. So here are the pictures of Leap in Vienna. In the early part of the show, I was able to move around a bit and take the band from different places. And what I really liked at this venue was the backlights with some haze, which were creating nice light beams across the stage. I was surprised they didn't really front light the band particularly well, but for these images of the bass and drum players just worked really quite well. The challenge of the 35mm is evident in this picture, where I would have probably chosen a slightly wider focal length to capture the drums and also a little bit more of the crowd. Instead, I sort of focused on how the band interacted with the crowd and how the crowd used their iPhones to capture the excitement of the event. This is my favourite picture of the show. I really like the light beam hitting the bass player, and also although the singer's face is somewhat in shadow, I really like the light lighting up his knuckles. And here are the pictures from London just a weekend before Christmas. I really liked this picture from the London Underground, and although the adverts aren't quite vertical as they should be, the slightly angled escalators along with the slightly angled pictures really makes for quite an engaging picture, I think. I then went into Trafalgar Square and captured the fountain and the Christmas lights, and also a hot dog stand that was set up there. I then went into the National Portrait Gallery and took pictures of kings and queens and heroes from the natural world. I then went to Covent Garden, and not surprisingly, it was just really, really, really busy, just too crowded for my like. And the impact of all of these people were felt with the rubbish that were piled up on the street. I then sought a way to get away from the crowds and went down some of the back streets and side streets and found this fantastic little square just literally 50 or 100 yards from Covent Garden, with this incredible steel fire escape and these townhouses with these rather sort of Victoriana type street lamps and little walkways and alleyways, and a church with this very tall window also lit up with the street lamp. I then looked into other people's windows and became somewhat of a flaneur, and then gave up and decided to call the evening an evening. So in conclusion, I think the reason that I don't get on with this lens particularly well is for the photography that I really love doing, which is outside. That 27mm slightly wider focal length just really works for compositions from my perspective. I'm sure I can use this to get good pictures, and I know that I can, and I think I've demonstrated it. It's just that slightly wider field of view that I like for my outside photographs. For gig photography, it works really well. It's not too tight on the performers, and it's not too wide, so you don't really get a sense of closeness into the band. So I'm certainly going to keep it in my photography bag, and it will definitely get used going forward, and I'm going to try and make myself love it a little bit more in the coming weeks and months. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. If it's been useful, please give it a thumbs up, maybe think about subscribing, and I hope to see you on the next video. And until then, thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.